All right, guys. We're here. Um, we we're gonna record the podcast yesterday, but to Alex's credit, we held off because we wanted to all read the reports, read the findings from the Chicago, Jenner and Block report. We're gonna start recording at 6. It's now 6:30 basically because Kyle Beach has just spoken on SportsCenter with Rick Westhead. Listen, obviously reading that report was difficult enough, but it didn't really hit me personally, all of this, until listening to Kyle Beach, who has identified himself as the player that Brad Aldrich and the Blackhawks and all that. He's the victim.
John Doe.
John Doe, yes.
Yeah.
He is John Doe. John Doe what? Obviously, there's that whole other thing going on. There is a lot to talk about here. I thought I had it nice and planned and know how we would talk about this until that interview. But I think the first thing to say is to thank you to Kyle Beach for identifying himself, for telling his story. Because even if he doesn't know it, but I feel he does, he has helped a lot of people with this today. And right now, I can't help but shake off this just anger towards the Blackhawks right now. You guys, I think you saw my reaction. I wiped a tear at a specific moment. And that was when Rick Rust had asked Kyle, what do you say to the student that Brad Aldrich sexually assaulted, I think it was in Michigan. And he said sorry. Kyle apologized, wishing he could do more. He apologized. We're going to get into some more formal stuff to start, but it's just, I can't wrap my head around all of this. The Blackhawks denying it, Coach Q denying it, the players continuing to sort of... Duncan Keith said today he claims that he didn't know about it until the initial lawsuit. Today might be the most important day in the history of the National Hockey League.
And they're going to screw it up. They are. I hate to say it. It's just if Joel Quenneville, and I mean this, if Joel Quenneville is behind the bench at tonight's game, and I think they start in about half an hour, it's a failure. It's a failure. They have failed the one thing that they said they're going to do. They have failed it.
Listen, I know us providing context is very important, but people find it 107. I know it's a lot. Go read it, but warning, it is not easy. It's not. There are details in there, and they're ugly. They are.
Just to bring it up, if you don't want to read the entire report, Rick Westhead has a timeline piece where he kind of outlines from the beginning of the lawsuit up until now, and each piece has a story. It's on Rick Westhead's Twitter page.
Mike Stevens also has been tweeting out some really good bits of it too.
Yeah.
So that's the staff and graph, Mike Stevens, by the way.
Yes.
So here's what we know. There was a meeting that did indeed have the high brass of the Chicago Blackhawks, including Jim Gary, who was one of the skill coaches at the time, who I believe was the person that Paul Vincent told about the initial incident involving Aldrich and Beach. Beach went to, I believe it was Vincent. Joe Quenneville, who we know who was the coach of that Blackhawks team, is now with the Florida Panthers. Kevin Cheveldayoff, who was AGM at the time, now the GM of the Winnipeg Jets. Jay Blunk, another member of the organization. Al McIsaac, who has been one of their senior VP of a player personnel, not to mention just has been in the organization for, I think it's around 20 years. or president or vice president of hockey ops, I believe. There was also Stan Bowman, who is now stepped down, was allowed to step down as GM of the Chicago Blackhawks. Saying he has also stepped down as GM of Team USA for the Olympics, again allowed to step down. And also former president John McDonough, who we know left the organization, I want to say last year, or right before COVID probably, due to some disagreements. Doesn't need to be related to this because we didn't know about this back then. And basically, they were told about the incident, and they did nothing for it. It was understood that it was left to John McDonough, and Stan Bowman was very clear in laying the blame at his feet. And there was nothing done for 3 weeks. Go ahead.
Just to provide context, this was all going on in the middle of the Stanley Cup playoffs. I believe the conference finals. I believe they were playing San Jose. In 2010, they had just beat San Jose. Sorry about the dog. Just beat the Circs to secure their spot in the Cup final. You're right.
Which is very important for later on.
Yeah.
So, at the end of that, by the way, and we will go back to some stuff from the meeting and some of how some individuals have sort of, and what's been said. At the end of those 3 weeks, once the Cup final was done, Brad Aldrich, in the meantime, actually, you know that, Brad Aldrich made sexual advances on a 22-year-old NHL intern. Their inaction led to that. Now, at the end of all of this, Brad Aldrich was not investigated by the Blackhawks. They gave him a chance. The findings of Jenner and Block show that the Blackhawks said, okay, Brad, we can either open investigation or you can leave. Yeah. He was still paid for months after. He was still around the team for the finals. He was still at the celebrations. The report actually has photos of what he was at. He has a ring, and his name, as far as we know, is still on the Stanley Cup. It's almost, I just don't get it. I don't get it.
You don't get what?
I just don't know what goes through their minds. We know that Joe Quenneville did say, and I'm paraphrasing here, that Stan Bowman has claimed that Joe Quenneville to the effect said, and I can get the exact quote of it in a second here, but basically saying that Quenneville saying this was going to disrupt team chemistry, and that's what he didn't like about it.
Of course. Distractions. You know how much we love talking about distractions in the sport of hockey.
Well, the quote that Quenneville had today about I try and keep distractions out when talking to the media today was just amazing, wasn't it?
I mean, he all but not confirmed it, but it's like, well, you laid the groundwork for what went on those days.
Mm-hmm.
Saying, well, I try to keep the distractions out of the room. Well, I wonder what happened.
There was another bit here. This is about Joe Quenneville as well. So this is what I was talking about. Bowman recalled that after learning of the incident, Quenneville shook his head and said that it was hard for the team to get where they were and they could not deal with the issue right now. Bowman further recalled that McDonough referenced his previous employment with the Chicago Cubs. Bowman recalled McDonough saying that the Blackhawks might never make it this far in the playoffs again. So the priority, and there is another bit where Quenneville quotes chemistry being a problem here. They put chemistry and having a shot at doing the thing over sexual assault. Even at the time, it would have been, all right, so there's alleged it doesn't matter. They didn't, apparently they purposely avoided going to HR about this for weeks. Again, here's another snippet I'll read you. So this is on June 14th. McDonough informed, June 14th, this is after everything, right? McDonough informed the Blackhawks then director of human resources that Aldrich had allegedly made a sexual advance on John Doe. According to the director of human resources, McDonough also informed her about the May 23rd meeting in his office. That's the one with all the high brass, right? During which McDonough said it was decided that the group would not alert human resources or do anything about the incident during the playoffs. Here it is, as not to disturb team chemistry. When interviewed, McDonough stated that he did not recall this conversation with human resources. By the way, not recalling stuff is a very common theme throughout this entire dossier, I will mention, by the way.
Yeah.
And a reminder, the incident with the 22-year-old intern continued. Not to mention, if you also read the rest of this, there is stuff of when like the team was going out to a restaurant, I think it was a Pita Land or something, and Aldrich texting. Not only John Doe, or Kyle Beach, we should say now, but also who was referred to as Black Ace 1 in this entire thing. Their negligence, they were negligent, led to another incident.
More than one.
So, I want to find this other part here. Okay, I'm not going to screen share because honestly, some of the titles I have here for some of these investigations are... So listen to this. This is one more snippet. So this is about in a June to. This is going to be a little much. So just bear with me here. Yep. In a June 2009 unsigned performance evaluation. So this is technically before everything happened. Quenneville wrote that, quote, Brad did a great job to accommodate the coaches preparing for meetings and their everyday needs. I believe going forward, Brad can be more efficient by being in a separate working environment and not in the middle of constantly being disturbed. In his last performance evaluation, dated June 29th, 2010. So that's at the end of the playoffs, okay?
How does he have a job? Like, why can't anyone give me a proper answer on that?
Well, Alex, this might be a reason.
Nepotism.
After Aldrich had, maybe not. Does he have is Aldrich related to someone in the game?
Yeah, someone in San Jose.
Yeah.
His dad.
Yeah.
Trade.
So yeah, there's that connection there where it's just you're gonna hire each other's kids.
Okay. Alex, do you just want to quickly read this part about a potential job evaluation that Quenneville has apparently wrote?
Yeah. So this is in the report. In a June 2009 unsigned performance evaluation, Quenneville wrote that, quote unquote, Brad did a great job to accommodate the coaches preparing for meetings and their everyday needs. I believe going forward, Brad can be more efficient by being in a separate working environment and not in the middle, constantly being disturbed.
That just sounds kind of off, doesn't it?
That's the 2009 one. Do you want to hear the 2010 one?
I'd love to.
Okay. In his last performance evaluation, dated June 29th, 2010, this is after Aldrich had separated from the team, but unsigned by Quenneville and Aldrich. Quenneville wrote, Aldrich did a great job for the coaching staff in preparing us for all our meetings and coordinating several tasks that we forward his way. Brad has several people relying on him at the same moment and has a way of deflecting and accommodating everyone at once. Congrats on winning the Stanley Cup. When interviewed, Quenneville stated that he did not recall whether he wrote the June 29th, 2010 evaluation of Aldrich or if he knew whether Aldrich had been separated at that time, but did not dispute that he may have written the evaluation.
It's the thing of I don't recall that. I think that's the legal way of saying almost no, but it's lying without lying, right?
Sorry, the next sentence, I guess this is important too. He further stated that the review looked to him like something he would write. Okay.
It's like listening to Gary Bettman talk. You know what I mean?
It is. Very much is.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I say it again. How does he still have a job? Like right now, like at this moment, in 20 minutes, the game starts against Boston, Florida versus Boston. How does he have a job? Sorry. Go ahead, Daniel.
No, it's just my apologies for my voice. Yeah, I think that's just one thing that I wanted to know more. It's just that as these things become more immediate, that we're getting a lot more updates with this, that there's going to be a lot of that affecting what's going on around the league. And with Joe Quenneville, it's just not even a statement, not anything that's going on, even from the organization. I'm finding right now that it's just that kind of thing where, and it's what we've already seen so many times with NHL teams, and in this culture, it's just that until they're repeatedly called out for what's going on, nothing is going to be said. That culture of silence.
And yeah, and just to be clear, let's not pretend like this is just it's a Chicago thing. Can I read you a quote today from Dave Tippett?
Sure, yeah.
So this is Daniel Nugent Bowman. He writes for The Athletic. He's an Oilers reporter. Oilers Dave Tippett on the Chicago sexual assault scandal. Quote, I don't have much comment on it. I have some personal relationships there, so I don't want to comment too much about it. It was an unfortunate incident 11 years ago that I'm sure you'd go back and do things differently. I mean, it kind of says it all right there. Like, this is I think Daniel made a really good point. Nepotism, like, and whether it's family or friends or close, like, this is what this is. Let's not be confused as to how and why this stayed under wraps for 11 years.
There also may be another reason, or more to do why it didn't come out at the time. Here's another snippet from the dossier. Okay. Bowman recalled that during the meeting, the big meeting, we'll call it, if we say meeting, it's probably the big brass one we're talking about. McDonough and Quenneville made comments about the challenge of getting to the Cup Finals and desire to focus on the team in the playoffs. Several years later, McIsaac, in discussing the situation between Aldrich and John Doe with another Blackhawks employee, stated that McDonough did not want any negative publicity during the Stanley Cup Finals. Again, it's the thing of distraction. Yes,
yeah, no, that as well as too.
Again, the priority there is shocking. It's sick.
Their priorities are clearly not set the way they should be. I have a statement from the Chicago Blackhawks. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this. This is a minute old or 2 minutes old.
No, go ahead.
A statement from the Chicago Blackhawks. First, we would like to acknowledge and commend Kyle Beach's courage in coming forward. As an organization, the Chicago Blackhawks reiterate our deepest apologies to him for what he has gone through and for the organization's failure to promptly respond when he bravely brought this matter to light in 2010. Mm-hmm. It was inexcusable for the then executives of the Blackhawks organizations to delay taking action regarding the reported sexual misconduct. No playoff game or championship is more important than protecting our players and staff from predatory behavior. The Blackhawks have implemented numerous changes and improvements within the organization, including hiring a new leadership team that is committed to winning championships while adhering to the highest ethical, professional, and athletic standards. Did they honestly write a sentence that would included "we're committed to winning championships" in it? Like, they really did that? Maybe it's just me, but that rubbed me the wrong way. That line rubbed me the wrong way.
Well, one thing we should probably mention, by the way, you've just kind of reminded me of it, is that the report has also sort of stated that ownership, there was no evidence that ownership were aware of this until the lawsuit came about.
Yeah.
Have your opinions on that what you will, but that's what the report says. Okay. One quick thing about Bowman, because there's a certain part of this where of the report where it goes through Cheveldayoff said this, Bowman said this. There's not a whole lot about Cheveldayoff in the entire thing. So we can talk about like exactly what happens with Quenneville and that later. But there is some interesting stuff about Bowman here. So just one quick thing, and I think this is going to make people mad because I'm going to be pretty mad reading it. Bowman recalled that during the May 3rd, 2010 meeting, either McIsaac or Gary stated that there was an incident between John Doe and Aldrich, in which Aldrich had tried to, quote, climb into bed with John Doe one night at Aldrich's apartment. Bowman recalled that Gary said he had only spoken to John Doe earlier that day and that John Doe did not want to talk about it. Bowman told us that, as described to him, the situation did not strike him as immediately alarming, and at the time, as the allegation did not involve the sexual assault as having occurred. I'll read that last one more time. Bowman told us that, as described to him, the situation did not strike him as immediately alarming at the time, as the allegation did not involve a sexual assault as having occurred. So it's almost kind of like the phrasing of "try to climb into bed," and also, again, it's another example of Bowman sort of going and deflecting blame to another party here to me. Am I wrong in thinking that? Because that's what I get from it.
I don't think you're wrong. All I've heard from Bowman is passing blame on from one person to another. And, well, someone described it to me, and, I thought John McDonough was going to do that. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, he's the GM. Like, I don't understand why he kept doing all of that, where I don't know.
Hey, listen, at my job, all I do is call people to tell them they're getting stuff delivered. Okay? If there's a problem, I go to my boss, right? Mm-hmm. But if I'm expecting something, I chase my boss just to be like, hey there, what's going on with this so I can get back to this person, right? If it's like that, for, a university student trying to, get some extra money in his pocket or something like that, why is there no follow-up in a billion-dollar organization for sexual assault? That's the red flag, by the way, another thing for Bowman there. There is no excuse there. It's like, just I'm too busy. Because, okay, just to remember here, what are GMs, if you're a GM and you are, your team is in the cup final, what are you doing other than stressing and watching a hockey game? Was that it? Was he too
not making any moves?
Like,
at the time, yeah.
We're in Philly tonight. What do we do? It's game 6. I'm sure he had all the time to talk to Patrick Kane after he scored the game. It was the game 6 overtime.
Yeah.
But but McDonough, they got it. Oh,
well, someone else is going to deal with it. Someone else will deal with it.
It's one of your employees saying that this has happened to me. What are you thinking, dude? I just. Not to mention, we know that players have also often talked about the distractions of the room, right? Mm-hmm. Is it not alarming that, and this is a decade ago, that a player in this instant is being raced to you right after? I'm kind of fuzzy on what exactly these details might be, but this might have happened in the middle of the 3rd round going into the cup final, that somebody took the time to acknowledge, to tell you about this. That should be a red flag by how little players actually talk. Even today, if somebody said to you, this is happening to me, in the 3rd round, it's a big deal. A decade ago? And we look at how, some players, nowadays, and we're going oh, here's Jonathan Drew and Bobby Ryan and all that getting help. And it's a big deal now. A decade ago, that didn't raise a flag to Bowman.
And it was Paul Vincent, a very well-respected voice in all of hockey.
Yeah.
Yep. Another tweet I wanted to quickly read. This is in reference to Gary. This is again from Rick Westhead. New, the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation, which licenses certified counselors, has opened an investigation of Doc Jim Gary, who was not an actual doctor, who allegedly told John Doe 1, and again, I'll emphasize earlier, a lot of this stuff is not easy to hear. And again, Jim Gary was a mental skills coach. And in the report, it talked about how he regarded, kind of used juvenile sexual humor to engage with players. He has apparently allegedly told John Doe 1 that the sexual abuse was his fault. That's something else going on. By the way, every apparent member of the executive team from 2010 is now gone.
Good.
The guys, everyone is gone. Everyone is gone now.
Receipts.
And let's not forget that there are other members of the team who apparently might have gotten crap here. I'm going to read something from, this is in regards to Black Ace 1. Again, not easy to hear. I'm going to keep going here, though. In 2010, rumors of an incident between Black Ace 1 and Aldrich started and followed Black Ace 1 for years. Black Ace 1 recalled being asked by a couple of players about whether Aldrich gave Black 1 Ace a BJ. Black Ace 1 recalled laughing off the question and saying no. A former coach for the Rockford IceHawks wrote in 2011 evaluation of Black Ace 1, I think what happened last spring with Brad Aldrich weighed heavily on Black Ace 1 this year, big time. By the way, if memory serves, Alex, can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Can you look up who the Rockford Ice Dogs head coach was back then? I think we all know the answer, but I want to make sure.
Yeah.
When interviewed, the former coach stated that he never spoke to Black Ace 1 about Aldrich and based the note in the evaluation on rumors he heard at the time. Black Ace 1 also recalled an incident in approximately 2014, 4 years later, when he was chased around the ice by a former Blackhawks player who had called Black Ace it's a slur. It begins with F. I can't use it. I'm not going to. And asked if Black Ace 1 liked that BJ or what. Another thing about hockey culture, by the way, there that teammates were ripping a guy about it.
About abuse.
4 years later, by the way, this is still Blackhawks. They were going to win the cup next year. This is still them at their best and like a model organization in the league. Remember,
quote unquote.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Sorry, what year was it that you're asking for? 2011, 2012?
It just says 2011, but it's in regards to the incident afterwards. So 11 to 12, please.
Yeah. So it's Ted Dent. It was actually the year before was Bill Peters last year. I'm assuming that's who we were all thinking of.
Yes. Okay. Never mind then. Because there would have been but I mean, let's not forget that Bill Peters, Akeem Alou situation, all that was another part of that organization.
He was that was his first year, Bill Peters' first year in Detroit.
That's just
as an assistant.
But he did come from Chicago's organization, didn't he?
Correct. Yeah. He spent 3 years there.
That's ridiculous. And then he goes to Detroit and he's under Babcock.
Correct. And then Carolina and then Calgary. And
now KHL or something? Or is he just gone?
No, I believe he's in the KHL.
Okay. And one last thing before we go into some more details of sort of how the league needs to respond and how they punish the Blackhawks here. And by the way, that interview that Rick Westhead did asked all the questions.
Yes.
Especially towards one group, the NHLPA.
Oh, are we going to talk about that now?
I have one quick snippet here that I'm going to read and we can see where it goes.
Okay.
By the way, anyone listening, we're only talking about this today for obvious reasons. It's this. Okay. So in all of this, by the way, for some context, John Doe had a confidant in all of this. Quote, the confidant recalled that Fuhr, Donald Fuhr, aka the head of the PA, and I believe this was right at the beginning of his tenure, responded that he knew people at USA Hockey and that the NHLPA would look into the situation and that the NHLPA could offer support. At the time, Aldrich, I believe, was actually going to work for USA Hockey. The confidant recalled that Fuhr suggested that the individual could speak to the PA-affiliated therapist, even though the individual was not an NHLPA member. When interviewed, Fuhr stated that he did not recall a conversation with John Doe's confidant, although he did not deny that such a conversation occurred. And I believe in the interview he had with Westhead, Beach did say there were at least 2 conversations with Donald Fuhr.
So this is from Mike Stevens, the same one as before. But I've seen everyone tweet this as well. I was on an NHL roster when this happened. I reported every single detail of this to someone at the NHLPA. And for him, Donald Fair, to turn his back on the players when your one job is to protect, I don't know how that can be your leader.
We've sort of looked at Donald Fuhr and criticized him about the Eichel stuff. That's a surgery for a neck. It goes that much worse.
You guys know my skepticism of the NHLPA.
Yep.
I think this is very much made it worse. I think the NHLPA has done a horrible job and they look horrible after this. They only speak when forced to. They only deal with issues that are minor. Like, I don't care that the NHLPA is involved in this dress code shenanigans. Why wasn't the NHLPA involved in this? Why isn't the NHLPA like? Why are we 6 months into Jack Eichel and now we're talking about a grievance? Like, why have the NHLPA been so quiet on every issue? It's just infuriating. Infuriating. If I'm a star of this league, if I'm a minor league player in this league, I am infuriated by what I've just heard about what the PA has done this. I don't know what I think of Donald Fehr anymore. Like, it's gone. The reputation of Donald Fehr, along with multiple other people, reputation is down the drain for me personally.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't know if anyone after all of this can really think that. Again, this was. I just, the stain that this is going to have is should forever change the game in a good way. There should be, first off, it's embarrassing that they even need to talk about this. As in, sorry, not talk about this, that this was uncovered a decade later. It's embarrassing on that front, and it just shows the failure of the league and the Blackhawks. And Kyle Beach did talk about this. And, it takes so much at the end of the day for him to sort of say, hopefully there can be change here and all that. The fact that he could still be positive and all that after everything that's happened to him. And the speculation and how people starting yesterday figured out that it was him because the details of this age of this player, and then it wasn't hard for people to figure it out. First off, speaks to his character and just how good of a person he is. So much respect for that. But you have to hope that the league can somehow learn from this, even if they should have been learning from this forever ago. It's so sad to have to say that, but that has to be the hope right now for fans of this game. Just some context for some stuff, if anyone's interested, is over 100 people were interviewed for this, apparently, for the findings here. 21 former and current Blackhawks and Rockford Ice Hogs were talked to. We also know, by the way, now the fallout of this, it's said that Bill Guerin will be the new GM of USA Hockey, which, for those of you who don't know, he's currently also being investigated for an incident back when he was a member of Pittsburgh and covering sexual assault. That's all alleged right now. There's an investigation going. Listen, I don't know what USA Hockey are thinking, but it seems to be on an Olympic level. At least their reputation continues to just be questionable at best. But we'll see there. You
brought up an important point there, and I want to emphasize it about how the league will respond. It has been over 2 years, almost 2 years, since the Akimalu, all that stuff had come out after Mike Babcock was fired and the ensuing things that had come out. We are still waiting on the investigation of that, and it's been almost 2 years. So if that gives us people an idea of how long, of how the league will handle this.
I do think it will be. I think it's going to be quicker than that, just because it's well, we already know that Bettman's meeting with Chevy and that in the next few days, but it just kind of talked to the. Again, there was no sort of investigation from the league itself until sort of it became mainstream, and only now are we sort of getting word that, okay, Gary's going to move in now. You're like, okay, there is definitely a late response to it, and the fact that there is no sort of. I don't know if the league have this power, but considering the influence Gary Bettman has over ownership, how there wasn't a thing of, can you fire him and not, let him step down, or how he hasn't sort of pushed to be like, oh, hey there. Sorry if I'm losing my train of thought here. Like how he hasn't sort of put the pressure on to say, okay, if you're Winnipeg or you're Florida, temporarily suspend your guys in the meantime. That's a big thing. That also shows a sort of response from the league. Not to mention, Alex, kind of building your point of almost inaction. So I believe Jeremy Colleton's, their head coach, his salary is around $1.5 million, right? And people have been using this comparison all over. When the Devils lost picks, which I think they eventually got back anyway.
They got 30th back, but because they were a lottery team, but they just gave them the 30th pick of that draft.
So they gave that up, and this is in regards to the illegal Ilya Kovalchuk contract. Alex, you're gonna know this. How much were they fined, the Devils, back then?
$3 million.
The Blackhawks were fined $2 million by the league for mishandling this whole thing. So I'm just gonna quickly get up cap friendly and let's just do an experiment, shall we?
Okay.
So I'm gonna go to the Chicago Blackhawks, who have not won a game, by the way, and I will personally be rooting for the Leafs tonight.
What?
To just, I genuinely hope the Blackhawks lose 20-0 tonight. I really do. So just for some context here. Okay, so Henrik Borgstrom and Ryan Carpenter together make $2 million. Brandon Hagel makes 1.5. Only $1 million more. Dylan Strome makes 3. Just for some context there. Their backup, Caleb Jones makes less than $1 million. So basically you got fined about 2.25 of Caleb Jones. They were basically fined a third-line winger for mishandling a sexual assault claim from an employee. I just want that to sink in for everyone. A team that is, by the way, I think it's easily top 10 value, one of the few teams in the league that are valuable and make money. Correct. The team that for a decade, by the way, had Taves and Kane being the highest sold jerseys in the league. And those aren't cheap jerseys. Not to mention, okay, so let's just sort of shift gears here. And that is, we're now going to sort of look to what happens. We know that I think tomorrow Quenneville is going to New York to meet with Gary Bettman to discuss that.
Yeah.
And I think is it on Monday that, I can't remember the exact day that Cheval Day out is going to meet? Monday?
On Monday. Like, it's Wednesday. Am I the only one beyond belief? I don't care if his team plays a game. I don't.
Zoom.
Zoom. There's always times where, for other reasons as well, that the team will be fine without the coach for a few games. And for a situation like this, I really hope Joe Quenneville considers that.
Trades aren't done overnight. They're done over months. He can skip one evening to go talk to Gary.
I can't understand why either of them, Cheveldayoff or Quenneville, are currently going to be at either of their games. And for Cheveldayoff, it's probably more than one game.
So it is, by the way, now based on the findings of these investigations, true that they denied knowledge, which they did, about this. I believe they both said, we didn't know until it all came out, or at least until the lawsuit.
Yeah.
Or until Aldrich was gone at the very earliest, I believe. And now we know that's false. They lied about that. And they're still around as of right now.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Sure.
Why is it that when a player has a hearing, he is no longer allowed to play a game until the hearing is done? But when an executive has a meeting or a chit chat, whatever way Gary Bettman wants to spin this, it's okay for him to be there, to be at the game.
You know what Gary would say? We need time to pull all the procedures together or something.
What procedures?
We want to get it straight. I don't know.
He can come up with a bajillion excuses. I will not accept one of them.
They've had time too. They've had time. They've had since when did this break? The third or fourth round of the playoffs last year? Because Bergevin was asked about it, I remember. By the way, let's point it out here because we do talk about the Habs on this show a lot. Mark Bergevin was not named. I don't think I saw his name once in that entire dossier.
I don't think it was, no.
But since then, they've had time to sort of prepare for what this is. And again, Zoom. Alex sends out an email, and I'm in right away. Daniel's maybe like 10 minutes, but
I was early today.
Don't throw him under the bus.
Yeah, no, but you know what I mean? Like that is the point, that like how quick it is. That's all you have to do. I'm sure they have a lawyer ready in Winnipeg. Excuse me. Probably. Just no reason. Because honestly, let's just be straight. Forget about Joe Quenneville, who is probably the greatest coach of this era, probably second all time behind Scotty Bowman. You're right. What does this say about that family's reputation now, by the way, with what's happened with Stan? That has to go now. For the 3 cups, whatever. I really hope Chicago stop booing Jeremy Colleton, because it's like, oh yeah, because we're so upset you replaced Quinville after, like, knowing what sort of happened. Now Quinville was obviously let go because for whatever, like, because
They were
Bowman was an
500.
idiot. Yeah, they were fighting over the fact that he brought them 3 cups, like because the Blackhawks are idiots. And at the same time, Sheffield Dayoff too. I mean, he's, even if he was just the AGM and of all those people, was probably at the bottom of the ladder, still denied knowledge of it. They have no right being in the game anymore.
Can I read? Sorry to cut you
Go
off.
ahead.
Can I read you a Jeremy Colleton quote from this morning?
I would love to hear it.
It's not what you think it is. It's
Okay.
bad. It's not great. It's not a good look.
Oh no.
Jeremy Colleton called it a tough day personally to see Bowman resign. Stan's the one who gave me the chance to come here, and he's been a great mentor. I feel bad for him. Obviously, I feel bad for him. Obviously, what's in the report, it's tough to read. The Stan I know, that's not his values. Before either of you go, it's just, how do you say that publicly? Like, how do you think you wake up this morning and say, yep, this is the findings? And the first thing is, I'm going to practically defend Stan, but like, that's what it is. Like, let's not pretend like it's something else here. It's just.
Do you know who I respect a lot and who I have gained a lot more respect for? Not that I didn't like this guy before, but you know who I have in very high regard now after today? Alex DeBrincat.
Yes.
Who said this is probably the right decision. Who was honestly, for anyone who's spoken today, him, Duncan Keith, has been the most for like, yeah.
And he's like one of the youngest guys.
Yeah.
That actually made a stand in, amid all of the other veterans around the league, all of the management, all the coaching staff. Between
him, Kane, and Taves, because obviously Kane and Taves are a lot older now, like, DeBrincat's going to be the guy who's going to be around there the longest. The party line in Chicago today should have been, we're committed to moving forward, and we support John Doe and all of that. And they just sort of missed that.
They apologize, like, just a generalized sense. And again, when you mentioned the cup part, everyone on Twitter, all of the journalists are talking about that as well. Like, was that really necessary to add at this moment in time? Like, it's again, like, the team is tone deaf.
Oh, but 2 of those players weren't even there anymore. 2 half that team. It's Kane and Caves, and that's it. And aren't both of them away right now because they're in COVID protocol anyway?
Funny you say that. Jonathan Taves is in the lineup tonight.
Yeah, Kane is still out.
Has Taves spoken? Because he is under fire today.
Neither of them have spoken. Both of them were there.
They need to speak.
I don't know at what point you want to talk about the media, because I would genuinely like to have a conversation about that, or let me just rant, whatever it is that you want to do. If no one asks him a question about this, that is a failure. I don't care that they played a 60-minute game. That's irrelevant. I saw it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
I like to ask, were other players, because I know that a lot of them have retired, or they're in other leagues, or just, I don't know how the contracts are working because they're technically not playing, but I just know, like, Duncan Keith has been asked twice and he's denied it twice. But I just want to know, was there anything on Brent Seabrook or Marian Hossa or even Corey Crawford?
I know that there was a snippet that there are some players who were asked and just said no. So, because I guess it's not the sort of same, because it's not like subpoenaing someone, I guess. I'm not a law expert, but it was just sort of, there were guys that, or if they're in there, they just weren't spoken to. Because, I think, what did Duncan Keith say? He's like, I don't talk to the video coach that much, or it was him, or I can't remember who. It was one of the core members of the Blackhawks did say it, but it definitely wasn't Seabrook, who was, retired somewhere right now. But that's what I would say. So going to the media stuff, first off, if we're talking about the media, like, I'm smiling here because I love Rick Westhead so much. I DM'd him and I said, like, as a journalism student, like, I think I was like, you're like, I just praised him and he got back to me. He did, yeah. And like, honestly, Rick Westhead, I think on the show, I've described him as like, he is the like best example of a journalist like in hockey. He has never been afraid to talk about the tough stuff, even before this. And obviously, like acknowledging Katie String and Mark Lazarus too, but Rick Westhead, the work he has done has shown he has never been afraid to say it. Like 32 Thoughts, it's always been, the situation and Friedman go on and they have this big statement ready. No offense to those guys. I love them, respect them. But Rick Westhead has been there at the front. He's not going to listen to this podcast, but like,
You'd send it to him.
He is a role model, honestly. Like, that guy is incredible, and every journalism student should look at him and say, that's the gold standard right there. He wouldn't want this to be made about him. And I hate doing this, but go listen to the episode of the SDP he was on. I think he's going on again later this week.
Yeah,
after you've listened to this, of course. But that is the bar, guys. Him.
And I also like to say, in his personal life, what is going on right now, I know with his son and the chemotherapy sessions, that is something that we hope everything's okay with him and his family's in our prayers.
Mm-hmm. Alex, go ahead. Go ahead. I know you wanted to thingy, yeah.
Well, I think you make a good point there about what Rick Westhead does for sports journalism. Because I think, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think there's a lot of people who look at sport journalism and say, well, it's about talking about the game. It's talking about trades. It's talking about this. It's talking about that, where it's not about like, it's also about the issues. Like there's always going to be issues in everything, in politics and sports and business, in whatever it is. And journalists cover those issues in every other category I mentioned, but it's just not talked about in sports. So to see someone to do like in proper investigative journalism in sports, it is good to see. And to look like, we don't know what the impact or the change will be yet, because change does take time. Mm-hmm. But I can very much say, I think there's going to be an impact on a lot of people. And I mean, we've all written stories. I think knowing that your story has impacted a lot of people should mean a lot. But what I wanted to talk about with the media,
so just one quick thing before we go. I just want to add on to your point there. My second year writing coach, and David Singh, said to us very importantly, it doesn't matter if it's sports, politics, it's writing stories at the end. And this is the biggest story this league has seen, probably since the concussion stuff.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
It's difficult for me to say this, but it's humorous in a way to see a lot of people now thanking Kyle Beach, to me, because a lot of people were very silent on this issue. A lot of respected journalists were very quiet on this issue. I have an idea why. It's just not important enough. I really expect next time that they are more open to talking about, not just talking about it, writing the story about it. It's great to write the story when it's done. When, the report came out, we got to write a story. Well, what about your sources? What about a lot of these guys have sources, man. I find it hard to believe that no one had any information on this. Mm-hmm. It's just upsetting to see. And I really hope next time everyone does a whole lot better. And I almost guarantee this is not going to be the only time an issue of this stature is out in hockey. Yeah. Or in sport.
I really hope that this is a lesson to the league, that it puts more pressure on them to what we've said before, just don't believe that you could just drag things under the rug and expect them to go away, because they had these quick fixes and they had these really bad excuses we were focused on winning. I don't know. It's just something with the NHL, just that that human element that we've seen in this case, in so many different cases, is not evident to them. And man, like I've said it countless times, but the way the NHL operates, the way it's so closed off, the way that they have this sense of old boys club still, where they have this culture that it's not inclusive in any way. Like there's like, why do you expect that less people are less people are investing in the sport? Like I know that he's one of our professors, but I don't think any of us had him. But like at the Athletic, Sean Fitzgerald, he wrote a book about no one wanting to play hockey anymore, where you separate it from that Canadian identity now, and you see a lot more of the immigration coming to Canada, and hockey's not the first sport, and they're frankly not doing a good job of adding anyone to it. Like personally, and I know this is a very long way from now, but it's something that I really hold personal, is that when there's things like this, that when I have a daughter or I have a son, like I don't want to put them in hockey.
Oh, I was talking to my mom earlier, and she talked about I think Tim McAuliffe has kids in sports, and I was like, how do you do that? Like I've honestly thinking to me, I've always I've never really wanted kids, just because I'd be so paranoid of having a daughter, or just because it's. I remember seeing a tweet once. It's a bit of a joke, but it tells you the seriousness. It was like, girls, what would you do if men didn't exist? And it was like, put the headphones on, blare your music, and walk around in the night. And it's like, it just kind of hits you. To the world that they, for example, live in, women. And this is just sort of it's just I wouldn't trust people. I wouldn't trust sports in that. And I love the game of hockey, but since we started this show, has just felt like the reputation of this sport has just gone down and down and down and down. So something I wanted to quickly mention, because I just saw this on Twitter. Rick Westhead just quote tweeted a TSN thing about the interview and said, "I've talked to Kyle since our interview was broadcast, and he's in a good place. He's on Twitter, and for those who want to give him a follow and send him some love, it's KBeachy12, so that's KBEACHY 12. And his latest tweet is just joking about something going on the podcast, August 2020. And it's already there's already 70 replies on it. I quickly threw something up there. But go send the guy some love, because the amount of courage it takes to go out and sort of tell his story that he did. Guy's a hero in my books. He really is. And and especially hockey going to TSN, which is the one of the big two when it comes to broadcasting, obviously here in Canada. You obviously, it's probably because of how it also speaks to how big Rick is, because Rick was the one who had the interview. Yep. Because that he trusts Rick Westhead. He does.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay. Excuse me. I'm sick. Anything you guys would like to say here about the Blackhawks, about Kyle Beach, about Rick Westhead? Anything? Final thoughts on this entire this tragedy, really, but at the same time, hopefully, a moment that's going to change the game for the better. Sorry.
I agree with Alex, where it's going to take a lot of time for this to be fully implemented. That we're going to see very concrete changes within the game, within the league. And what I've mentioned before, where I'm speaking to other people who have played junior hockey, and they've experienced the toxic sense of the culture there. And like what I've said before, and what we've seen with it, it's always starts at every level. We can't just look at the NHL and say that, all right, well, this happened here, now we're going to be able to say that this is a universal thing. But I really believe that change has to happen at every level, and that openness to things. I know when we had Richard Coffey on, and he mentioned about what's the difference between other sports and hockey growing up. It's just that isolation you have from everything else, that it's away from other voices. It's away from how other people are. And that just creates another sport in itself, that what they believe is best. And what we saw clearly with the Blackhawks is that if you're not winning, then what's everything else? Nothing else matters in this sense. And for me, that needs to change. We're gonna definitely talk about this again at another time. But I guess of just today, where everything here, I know we've followed this case very closely as it unfolded, but it's just still a lot to process for me.
Yep. Alex.
Yeah, like I don't think this story is over. Maybe the report is done. There could be more things to come out, but I think this story is far from over in terms of, well, how does the NHL respond? And I mean, we've had the discussion about this, but overall, it was really disappointing. Like, just reading the report was difficult. Not gonna lie, I think we can all agree on that. Listening to him talk, very difficult. A lot of people's reputations were thrown in the garbage. For me, I think there's a lot of people on Twitter who very much agree with the stance of, why is Joel Quenneville coaching today? And it's surprising. It's genuine for me, knowing how divided hockey Twitter is at all times, no matter what, to see a general consensus is nice.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Again, one more time, thank you to Kyle Beach for everything you've done. Be better, Chicago. Be better, hockey. I look forward to doing the podcast as much as we do it. In the worst ways, I wasn't looking forward to today's episode, but I'm happy we did it. It was an important one. People, go send your love to Beach. Go do it. What a great guy. That's everything for us. We'll see you next time, when I'm sure we will be talking about the fallout from this and how it continues to go. If you're the NHL, make the right decisions here, because it's going to define a lot of your careers, the sport, and just do what's best for a human side of things, please. AKA, that's Quenneville and Cheveldayoff need to go. And one thing we'll mention, the Rottweiler is reminding me of it. Apparently, all of those guys who have sort of been stepped aside from the Chicago stuff, if they want to come back into the league, they have to go through Bettman, apparently.
Good.
And I'll tell you, he better have a pretty secure lock on the door to get back in, as tight as he had on Slava Voinov, and possibly even more.
Before we go,
yeah,
I want to read, because I think it relates to what you were saying there about Bettman. This is a quote from Rod Brindamore this afternoon.
Ooh, yeah.
So Sarah Sivian reported it. I asked Rod Brindamore what needs to change to prevent what happened with the Blackhawks from happening again. Quote, transparency. Players have to have a voice, and it needs to be heard. And appropriate action needs to take place. No point in pushing things under the rug.
And I think we'll close with those words from Rod Brindamore. Great coach, and a freaking great way to end it. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.